Mark stared at his bank statement for the third time that morning. $37.16. The rent was due in 4 days, and his refrigerator contained half a carton of milk, some questionable leftover food, and a single beer he'd been saving for when things get better. Seems that things were not getting better. His phone buzzed on the coffee table, a text from Jake, his high school friend who'd somehow landed a job in finance while Mark was still trying to finish his associate's degree between shifts at the gas station. Check this out. Making serious cash with minimal effort. Just signed up yesterday. A website link was displayed on the screen. Mark's thumb hovered over the link. Jake wasn't usually one for get-rich-quick schemes. He had a real job. A girlfriend who posted vacation photos from places Mark could only identify from movies, and no reason to waste time on internet scams. But Mark got nothing to lose. He couldn't be scammed because he had nothing. The website looked professional. Clean design, testimonials with LinkedIn profiles attached, and an As Featured In section with logos from few financial publications. Mark scrolled through the explanation. Verified users could complete simple tasks for businesses needing market research or customer interaction data. The sign-up process took less than 5 minutes, requiring his name, address, phone number, and, after a moment's hesitation, his bank account information for direct deposits. A notification appeared immediately. Congratulations! You've been approved for a $200 welcome bonus. Task: simply take a selfie to verify you are a real person. Upload within 24 hours to receive payment. Mark almost laughed. $200 for a selfie? It had to be a scam. But Mark was, undeniably, painfully desperate. He took 3 photos before choosing one where he didn't look quite as tired as he felt. He uploaded it to the site, expecting nothing. The deposit hit his account 18 minutes later. $200, just as promised. He stared at his phone screen, refreshing his banking app twice to confirm it wasn't some kind of glitch. For the first time in months, Mark ordered decent food. As he ate, he kept checking his phone, waiting for another notification, another task, a chance at what suddenly seemed possible. Money, time to breathe, a way out. 3 days later, Mark's phone buzzed with a new notification. His heart rate quickened as he opened the app. Verified task, $1,000 compensation. Photograph the security camera placement and back entrance of Goldstein Jewelers on 7th Street. Include images of employee parking and delivery schedule if posted. Complete within 48 hours for immediate payment. Mark read it twice. He felt something cold in his stomach. This wasn't market research. No one needed this information for anything good. He closed the message and put his phone down. 30 minutes later, he opened it again. $1,000. His rent was due tomorrow. $850 for the studio apartment that felt smaller every month. How else can he get the rent money? Not by working at the gas station, that's for sure. With his manager cutting his hours again, it would be impossible. This is probably nothing, he told himself. Maybe they're doing security consulting, or insurance evaluations, or anything else. Mark knew he was lying to himself, but he needed that lie. He needed a break more than he needed the truth. The next morning, he drove to 7th Street and parked a block away from Goldstein Jewelers. The place wasn't open yet, just a dark storefront with a discreet sign and meticulously clean windows. He felt ridiculous taking photos with his phone, like a child playing spy. The back alley had a single reinforced door, a keypad entry system, and 2 security cameras, one pointing at the door, one sweeping the alley. A small sign listed delivery hours, Monday and Thursday, 2 to 4 p.m., Mark took the photos quickly, glancing over his shoulder after every photo. A police cruiser turned onto the street as he was leaving. Mark shoved his phone in his pocket, heart hammering against his ribs when the officer gave him a passing glance. Back in his car, he sat with his forehead pressed against the steering wheel, breathing too fast. What he'd just done, what he was about to do, helping someone rob a jewelry store. This was a crime. Had to be. But was taking photos illegal itself? He didn't want to know. Still in his car, he uploaded the photos with trembling hands. The confirmation message appeared immediately. Task verified. Payment processing. By the time he arrived home, the money was in his account. $1,000. More than 2 weeks' pay at the gas station. He paid his rent, then ordered a pizza, a large one, not the $5 special he usually got, and bought the fancy beer he'd been eyeing for months, a 12-pack of it. That night, he slept well for the first time in over a year. The hangover hit him hard the next morning. He finished 8 beers while watching old sitcoms, laughing too loudly at jokes that weren't that funny. Now his head throbbed in time with his pulse as he fumbled for his phone to check the time. 10:47 a.m. He had a shift at 2 p.m. Plenty of time to recover. He scrolled through his notifications, pausing when he saw a text from Jake sent last night. "Mark, I think my phone got hacked or something. Changed all my passwords. Let me know if you get weird messages from me." Mark stared at the screen. A sick feeling quickly replaced the hangover. He opened his messages and found the text from Jake with the link. It looked authentic. Jake's name, Jake's number. He tapped through and called Jake. "Hey man, what's up?" Jake sounded like he was in a coffee shop, ambient chatter in the background. "That text you sent me about the Easy Money website." A pause. "What text? I didn't send you anything about money." Mark's mouth had gone dry. He said, 4 days ago. "You sent me a link." Jake said what Mark didn't want to hear. "No, I didn't. That's what I was texting you about. Someone's been using my number or something. My girlfriend got a message asking for my social security number, said it came from me." Mark ended the call after a couple of minutes of strained conversation. He opened his laptop and searched for the link in Jake's message. Nothing. No website, no reviews, no warnings, like it had never existed. But his bank account showed the deposits, $1,200 altogether. Mark tried the website address again. He only got error page or suggestions to other sites. He tried variations of the name. Nothing. He searched his email. Maybe there is a confirmation when he'd registered. No emails, only messages to his phone. This is bad, he thought to himself. Over the next 2 weeks, Mark checked the local news. Every day. Nothing about jewelry store robberies or arrests. Maybe he'd overreacted. Maybe it was some kind of market research after all. The money paid his rent and utilities, with enough left over for groceries other than noodles, for once. At least there was a good side to it. He started feeling better. But not for long. 3 weeks after taking the photos, Mark was browsing news during his lunch break when he saw it. Armed robbery at Goldstein Jewelers. Thieves took $300,000 in merchandise. The article detailed how thieves had disabled the security system and entered through the back entrance during a delivery window. They knew exactly where the cameras were positioned, exactly when to strike. Mark closed the browser window. His sandwich lay half-eaten, forgotten. The gas station's break room suddenly felt too small, the fluorescent lights too bright. His coworker laughed at something on her phone. The laughter sound was jarring against the ringing in his ears. He was part of the robbery. He helped make it happen. People with guns had walked into that store, pointed those guns at other human beings, and stolen things worth more than Mark would make in 5 years. And they'd known exactly where to go. exactly how to do it, because of his photos. Had someone been hurt? The article hadn't mentioned injuries, but what if it just hadn't been reported? What if someone had resisted? What if he had blood on his hands? For the rest of his shift, Mark moved through a fog, mechanically greeting customers, making change, restocking cigarettes. Every car that pulled in made him flinch. Every police cruiser that passed the station sent a bolt of panic through his chest. That night, he dreamed of jewelry store employees with bloody holes where their faces should be, pointing at him silently from behind glass cases. Another 3 weeks passed. The money had disappeared into daily survival, rent, utilities, groceries. His hours at the gas station had been cut again with the manager playing favorites. The credit card he'd sworn never to use again was approaching its limit. His landlord had started leaving pointed voicemails about the approaching rent deadline. His refrigerator contained condiment packets from fast food places and a carton of milk he didn't dare smell. Each day, Mark found himself checking his phone obsessively, jumping whenever it buzzed. But no new tasks had appeared. He found himself staring at his empty bank account. Then, at the last message he received, his thumb hovering over the screen. "Do you have any more tasks for me?" He finally texted back one night, hating himself even as he pressed send. He replied to what's supposed to be Jake's number. He wondered whether his message will go through. He got his answer 3 days later, as he was walking home from the bus stop after another cut shift. His phone buzzed. Private number. New verified task. $10,000 compensation. Accept a package tomorrow at 2:15 p.m. Repackage contents in provided materials. Ship to address that will be supplied. Complete within 24 hours for immediate payment. $10,000. Mark stood in the middle of the sidewalk, people streaming around him, staring at his phone. 10,000 would solve everything. Rent, credit card, food, everything. But what would be the task? What is worth $10,000? He discarded the thought quickly. He was not in a position to choose. Or this is what he told himself. "Yes," he texted back, the single word feeling like both surrender and salvation. Reply came after 3 long minutes. Confirmation accepted. Prepare for delivery. The package arrived at precisely 2:15 the next day. A nondescript brown box, hand-delivered by a courier who left before Mark could ask any questions. Inside was a smaller box and packing materials. A padded envelope, shipping tape, and a prepaid shipping label to an address in Nevada. A new text arrived as he was examining the contents. Open the inner package. Verify contents. Repackage as instructed. Payment upon confirmed shipment. Mark's hands trembled as he opened the smaller box. Inside the smaller box lay a plastic bag containing what looked like yellow dice. Mark lifted the bag, squinting at the contents. They were not dice. They were teeth, human teeth, with brown-stained roots. That was not everything. He slowly unwrapped the small velvet cloth he found in the box. A leathery, grayish small object was there. A finger, a mummified human finger. Mark dropped the box. He ran to the bathroom and vomited until nothing came up. His reflection in the mirror looked pale, wide-eyed, a stranger wearing his face. He double-bagged the contents in kitchen garbage bags and shoved them into the back of his freezer, behind the ice trays he never used. He needs to figure out how to get rid of this horror without getting arrested for murder, or worse. He blocked the private number and deleted all the texts. 2 days passed. Mark called in sick to work and sat helpless on his couch. He kept seeing the teeth, the finger, kept wondering who they had belonged to, whether that person was still alive. On the 3rd day, a text from a new private number appeared. 12 hours to ship package. Otherwise, Goldstein. Then he received 3 photos. Him outside the jewelry store, him photographing the security cameras, him taking pictures of the back entrance. The images were crisp, professional, taken from what must have been across the street. They'd been watching him even as he thought he was alone. Mark sat on his bed staring at his phone. $10,000 wasn't worth jail. But jail for what, exactly? Taking photographs? That wasn't illegal. But conspiracy to commit robbery? That was different. And they'd made sure his bank account was directly connected. They had the texts. They had him. He typed yes, despising what he'd become, disgusted by his weakness, his non-existent morals. Then he hit send. At night, Mark put on kitchen gloves and transferred the contents of the bag into the padded envelope. He didn't look directly at what he was handling. He sealed the envelope, attached the shipping label, and drove to a 24-hour postal center 2 towns over. The woman behind the counter barely looked at him as she processed the package. "Going to Reno, huh? That'll arrive Thursday." Mark nodded, not trusting himself to speak. When he checked his account the next morning, the $10,000 was there. He paid his rent, his credit card, bought groceries. Then, for the first time in years, he went shopping. New jeans without worn knees, shirts without faded collars, 2 pairs of shoes, a phone to replace his cracked screen one. For a while, he felt almost human again. He started dating a woman from the coffee shop near his apartment, took her to dinner at places where entrees cost more than $15, bought concert tickets. For the first time in his adult life, he wasn't counting change or checking his account balance before every purchase. But a fool and his money are soon parted. A month and a half later, the money was nearly gone. His hours at the gas station had been cut again. The credit card was approaching its limit. Same recurring scenario. The woman from the coffee shop had lost interest when he started suggesting cheaper dates. Then a new text arrived. Verified task. $50,000 compensation. Deliver message to Margaret Wilson, 1422 Oakwood Drive. Message. Sell the house. Break subject's right arm above the elbow. Photo evidence required. 48-hour deadline. $50,000. Break someone's arm? Screw that. I ain't doing this, he mumbled to himself. Mark blocked the number again. Then he drove to a liquor store and bought the most expensive bottle of whiskey he could afford. He drank until he passed out on his couch, still in his clothes. The next morning, his phone buzzed repeatedly until he woke. Waiting for him were 3 text messages, a screenshot of his yes message accepting the package task, and a photo of him entering the postal center. The final message read, 24 hours to complete the task. Mark sat on his floor, phone in hand. His stomach was a pit of acid. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. He tried to imagine himself breaking an old woman's arm, the sound it would make, her screams, her fear. He thought about his choices: go to prison as an accessory to armed robbery, as someone who trafficked human remains, or break the woman's arm and become 50 grand richer. He made up his mind so quickly, it surprised him. $50,000. That was freedom. That was 6 months, maybe a year, maybe more. Without fear. Without scraping by. Without the humiliation of poverty. He told himself Margaret Wilson is probably rich, privileged, that maybe she'd done something to deserve this, that a broken arm would heal, that compared to what could happen to him in prison, her suffering was nothing. He knew these were lies, even as he thought of them, but he needed them. Lying to yourself is one thing. Knowingly lying to yourself was something else. He was getting used to it. He picked up his phone and typed, yes, Margaret Wilson lived in a small bungalow with ceramic gnomes in the garden. and a weather-beaten American flag hanging from the porch. Mark watched the house for 2 nights, learning her routine. Lights out at 10:15, no security system, side window with a failing latch. He slipped in through that window at 1:30 a.m. The darkness inside was absolute. She was asleep in the back bedroom, small beneath her quilt, breathing softly. An oxygen tank stood beside her bed. Photos of children and grandchildren covered her dresser. "Sell the house," he said, standing over her. She jerked awake, fumbling for her glasses. "Who's there?" "Someone made you an offer on this house. You said no." "Sell it." Before she could scream, Mark grabbed her right arm and twisted it backward until he felt the bones snap. Her scream was high and thin, more shock than pain at first. Then the pain hit, and her screams became desperate, animal-like. He took the photo while she was still twisting on the bed, clutching her shattered arm, her nightgown twisting around her thin legs. Mark walked out the front door and vomited in the bushes. Then he drove home, hands shaking so badly he nearly crashed twice. The next evening, someone knocked on his door. A man with a shaved head, neck tattoo, and dead eyes like empty holes. He handed Mark a duffel bag without speaking, looked past him into the apartment, then walked away. $50,000 in used bills. The weeks after Margaret Wilson blurred together. Mark stopped sleeping for more than an hour at a time. When he did sleep, her screams filled his dreams. He started drinking in the morning, stopped showering regularly, ordered delivery food that often sat untouched. He spent money frantically, as if emptying his accounts could somehow cleanse him. A motorcycle he barely rode, a gaming system still in its box, 3 different watches. The more expensive the purchase, the shorter the relief. Everything deteriorated. Mark's sister stopped calling after he screamed at her for no reason. The apartment grew cluttered with unworn clothes and electronics still in their packaging, empty bottles piled up in corners. 4 months after Margaret Wilson, as Mark sat staring at the wall he'd been watching for 6 hours straight, his phone buzzed with a new message. Final task. $100,000 compensation. Collect Lily Evans, 8 years old, from 72 Maplewood Lane. Deliver to specified location. Payment upon delivery. 24-hour deadline. He didn't bother looking at the attached photos. He knew what they were. Mark looked at the address again and again. Lily Evans, 8 years old. His niece Lily. His sister's daughter with the gap-toothed smile who sent him crayon drawings of dinosaurs. The little girl who fell asleep on his chest during family movie nights. A thought went across his mind, a question. He smiled and put the phone down. Mark filled his bathtub with warm water, opened a new bottle of whiskey, and drank half of it straight. He looked at himself in the mirror. Hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, skin gray and sagging. The face of a man who'd broken an old woman's arm for money, who'd been asked to deliver his niece to monsters. A man whose first thought had been, $100,000. Is it worth it? It wasn't. Mark stepped into the bathtub fully clothed, plugged in the hairdryer his ex had left behind, and the apartment lights flickered across town. Ray checked his phone. New message. Final task. $60,000 compensation. Collect Lily Evans, 8, from 72 Maplewood Lane. Deliver to specified location. Payment upon delivery. 24-hour deadline. Ray scratched at his neck tattoo and ran his fingers across his shaved head. The previous tasks had been easy enough. Deliver a bag, drive a getaway car, rough someone up. The money was good, way better than what he ever made on the streets. $60,000. More cash than he'd ever seen at once. Enough to disappear for a while, live large for a few months. Ray glanced at the gun on his coffee table. Glock, 9mm. Nothing fancy. He picked it up, feeling the weight in his hand. The kid would cry probably, doesn't matter. He just need to pick her up and deliver her. Not his problem what happened after. Just pick up and delivery. That's all they paid him for. Ray tucked the gun into his waistband and grabbed his keys. He pulled up directions to 72 Maplewood Lane on his phone. He smiled and thought to himself, "It is worth it."